What's up, Eagles Nation? Welcome to Week 5 of the NFL, the 2021 2022 NFL season. We, of course, are coming into this game. The Eagles, of course, I should say, are coming into this game. And us as Eagles fans are coming into this game 1-3 on the season. Obviously, the loss last week against Kansas City. Myself and Slim were in the building to see that one. But listen, wasn't really expecting a dub in that game. I mean, Kansas City certainly one of the better teams in the league right now. I know their defense has some problems, as they showed this past Sunday. They still have some problems. The Eagles, though, have some problems of their own, and the biggest takeaway from the game last week uh, was was twofold. A, the defense needs work. I know it's been a topic of conversation the last few weeks. Obviously, a defense that gives up 40 plus points the last 2 weeks. A couple weeks ago in Dallas on primetime, Monday Night Football, and then this past week against Kansas City. Now they did go up against two very high powered offenses. Those offenses are going to score 40 plus points against other teams. That's just how they're made. They have a lot of explosive weapons. They have quarterbacks playing at a high level, and you have that's what you're going to get, right? But at the same point, there are correctable things to be done. I don't like the too high safety. I don't like that set because it's opening things way up for the opponent's running game. And as we saw the last 2 weeks, you had Zeke Elliott running all over the Eagles defense, and then last week you had Clyde Edwards-Helaire, making some plays in the running game against the Eagles defense, and it did kind of open things up. And even though they were playing that too high safety look, Hill was still getting behind guys, and that's what he does. He has just absolute legit speed. He is the fastest receiver in the league. He gets behind a lot of defenses, but still, to kind of allow that to continue to happen was troubling. Not getting enough pressure. If you're going to play that kind of defense and you're not getting pressure on the opposing quarterback, that's an issue too. And I know Brandon Graham's loss for this season is a big loss for this defense. He's one of the defensive leaders. He's one of the tone setters on the defense, and he is sorely missed. But he's still one guy, and not being able to do much of any kind of pass rush with his absence on the field, it's still a troubling thing. I mean, listen, you did pay, Sweat with an extension. To this point, he really hasn't been a difference maker that I've seen. He has an opportunity out there, to be that guy, to kind of fill those shoes. And I know they're tough shoes to fill with Brandon Graham, but Josh Sweat to this point really hasn't done that. He's been kind of invisible the last couple weeks, as far as what I could see. I mean, and that's a troubling thing. Also, obviously, there's been a lot of talk this week, and in some cases, rightfully so, about the absence of Fletcher Cox on the score sheet week to week. Where is he? Where has he been? He is still getting double teamed, but at the same time, look, I mean, you got to fight your way through them. I know he's not young anymore, right? But at the same time, if he's going to be, considered one of the better, defensive tackles in the game, you still got to make plays. You still got to fight through it and make plays. And I know he's opened the door for Hargraves to have the season that he's had. I mean, a lot of attention's on Fletcher, so Hargraves, to his credit, has played really well. He's probably been the Eagles' defensive MVP to this point this season, and I know on this defense it might not be saying a whole lot over the last couple of weeks, but he has played really well, and part of the reason of that is a lot of the attention on the opposing offensive lines has gone to Fletcher. But if Fletcher's going to continue to be a non-factor week after week, some of those double teams might go away from him and might go over to Hargraves. Now, listen, again, Fletch has been a great Eagle throughout his career. He has, helped, of course, to win Super Bowl 52. He was one of the, instrumental leaders of that defense during that run and during these years. But the productivity has certainly gone down year after year after year. And again, much credit to the man, much respect to the man. That's a big guy. I actually met him once. The year the Eagles, won the Super Bowl, he was doing a signing at a local Modell's. He is a hoss. He really is. He's a big guy. But at the same time, listen, there's been other really good defensive tackles in this league that get double teamed and they fight their way through it and they still make plays. Aaron Donald does it every week. And I know Aaron Donald is on another level and it is unfair, to use him. But you see it with Tampa Bay's defensive tackles. You see it with some of the other better defensive tackles along the league in the league. I mean, yeah, if you're going to be that good, you're going to get double teamed, but you still fight through it. I mean, the greats still find a way, right? It's the old saying, right? The greats still find a way to do what they do. To do what they do best. And Fletch again has been absent, I believe, with the defense, and that's been one of the problems because one of the strengths of the Eagles' defense coming into the season and every season for the past how many years has been that defensive line, and we're just not getting enough, right? There's not enough pass rush on the edges. Really, the only guy that's been visible has been Hargraves, and it is a problem when you have one guy on your defensive line that week after week is making plays and no one else around him is really contributing. That's been a problem. That's been one of the reasons why the last 2 weeks you're seeing the 40 burgers put up on this defense because you're not getting the pressure on the opposing quarterbacks, and that leads to not getting any turnovers. I mean, they did get a turnover last week. And why they got that turnover? Because they got pressure on Patrick Mahomes and led to a bad pass and interception by Wilson. The week before they got a turnover, but it's just not enough. Not enough takeaways by this defense because, listen, when you're not, it does, like I said, it goes hand in hand. When you're not getting enough pressure on the opposing quarterback and disrupting their offensive flow, you're not going to get those takeaways, right? You're not going to get those situations where you're going to be in have a better chance of getting those takeaways. So are these correctable things? They are. And this is a defensive front, even without Brandon Graham, that still should be able to get some pressure on the opposing quarterbacks and stop the run, at least, do that. And they just haven't been able to do it the last few weeks. Now, listen, this is going to be a continuing saga as the season goes on. I've said it before and I say it again. The NFL football as a whole is the most reactionary sport there is because you have a whole week to digest what you just saw and also look ahead to what you may see in the coming game. These are things that I believe could be correctable issues. I'm not a huge fan of this defensive scheme, and I know Cannon came under a lot of fire this week with the fans, with the media, and with the head coach Sirianni. And to his credit, I mean, listen, this is a defense that you lose a leader in Brandon Graham, and it's going to be a problem, but it's still a defense that should be playing better, and they're just not. And listen, I've said this the past few weeks. I really wish, if I had one wish to make with a football genie, it would be I wish the Eagles would value the linebacker position. That's another problem with this defense. They just have not valued that position in years. And I know they got away with it years ago. They won a Super Bowl. Defensive line was getting all sorts of pressure, and you had a secondary because of that got a lot of takeaways. But the linebacker position has been an issue. They don't seem to value it. It doesn't seem to matter who the defensive coordinator is. They haven't used a high pick on a linebacker. They haven't really been a big player in free agency. I know they brought in Wilson this offseason, but they really haven't tried to address that. And the linebacker to me has always been and continues to be the heart and soul of the defense, right? The brain of the defense is the linebacker position. And I know safeties have really kind of become linebackers. Other teams have done different things, right? But to me, I look at some of these other defenses in the league and I see what makes them tick. Yes, they have good pass rush. Yes, they have a good secondary. But they also have good linebacker play. They got linebackers that tackle. Woo! Isn't that something? Right? We haven't had that in so long. And it's something that really needs, in my mind, needs to be corrected. It needs to be corrected because it's an issue. And I know it's a organizational philosophy with the defensive line, and everything has to revolve around the defensive line. But listen, it's not working. It simply is not working. You can't just do it with the defensive line and that's it. You have to put some value in the linebacker position. You have to put some value in the safety position. You have to be able to draft these guys, not just go after these guys in free agency and say, okay, we're just gonna put the piece here and here. You have to be able to draft these players. And for years, the Eagles just haven't been able to hit in the draft with linebacker, with safety, with cornerback. They've done okay with the defensive line, but the other aspects of the defense, they're just not getting there, right? And I know Darius Slay has been a big focal point as well this season, making comments, whatever. He's a veteran. He's not really making those big plays that his nickname would entail. But and it's an issue. But listen, sometimes you're a cornerback, you're on an island. Now he is supposed to be one of the better corners in the league, but he's getting beat up week after week, right? But sometimes you do have to step up, but at the same time, you're being put on an island one-on-one. It is what it is. I mean, he's an older, corner. He's not a spring chicken anymore. It's a problem. It's a problem, and they're not getting enough out of Nelson, who they brought in as a free agent this offseason. But again, there goes the devaluing of drafting a playmaking corner. We haven't had that in many years. I don't know. It's a problem. There's a lot of issues right now on the defensive side of the football. I don't know how correctable it is. I believe they could play better. We've seen them play better earlier in the season against Atlanta and against San Francisco. I don't think this is a defense that gives up 40 points a game going forward. I think this week's matchup against Carolina is and I know Carolina has look. I mean I don't believe McCaffrey's playing today, and that's a big problem for them. I know Moore has played really well at the wide receiver position, but listen, you're playing an offense that shouldn't put 40 points on you today, and if Carolina goes 40 burger on you today, okay, we really have they have some explaining to do. Because it's one thing to give up 40 points in Dallas and against Kansas City, two very high-powered offenses. If they do it again this week, I would even say if they give up 30-some points, 35 points to the Panthers, that's an issue. Even though it's in their building, it's on the road, that's an issue because now it's really, this thing is really snowballing. It's really snowballing. And by the way, that on a short week, then you got the GOAT coming in on Thursday night next week. Okay, so this thing could really get ugly really quickly. Okay, it's already ugly. It could get even more ugly going forward, right? So that was one of those takeaways from last week. The other takeaway from last week has been the offense, and I know that the offense played better certainly than they did against Dallas. Jalen Hurts, played better. Obviously, than he did against Dallas. As a whole, the offense played better than they did against Dallas. The problem, though, was ending drives with touchdowns, right? When they get in the red zone, it's like they bog down. There's a lot of confusion. The play calling just isn't there. I know Jalen missed Zach Ertz on that first drive. In fact, we were sitting up in section 214, and you see Zach open, and the pass just sails. And again, not to make excuses for it, you're going to have that from time to time. Every team is going to miss a guy from time to, it happens. It's the unfortunate part of it, right? It's not always perfect, right? But at the same time, when there's opportunities there to do it, you got to do it, particularly when you're playing against a team like Kansas City, who's an offensive juggernaut. You can't end your drives with either no points or 3 points against them. You can't settle for field goals. And too often in that game, the Eagles were settling, for field goals because good drives, good solid drives. I mean, they converted third downs. They were really looking good, but those drives kind of bogged down. And, you see the difference, right? You do see the difference, and it's unfair. I agree. I will totally agree to this before I say this. It is unfair, but you see Kansas City right? When they have drives, when they're in the red zone, when they're in the goal line, the creativity that offense does. They just have so many different looks. And again, it's unfair because they have really good, seasoned play callers and Andy Reid and Eric Bieniemy. So, yeah, I mean, their offense, though, is going to look that much better because they've been at it for a longer period of time and they have those playmakers, right? But they're very creative. I mean, the shuttle passes, the different looks that they do. And then the Eagles kind of, they get there and it's like, okay. Right? You just got to get over that line, guys. Just get over the line and then when they score touchdowns it gets called back because of penalties. Still a lot of penalties. Still a lot of penalties. And I think the referees, in a way, are kind of throwing flags just to throw flags. I've noticed that in the Eagles games and the other games, too. They're very flag happy this season for whatever reason. It really takes away from the flow of the game. And listen, when there is a call that has to be made, you have to make it. But at times, it's like, what are you throwing this flag for? For what? What happened? It's disturbing. It really is. And it takes away. I mean, we're sitting there last week. You get all excited. Here's a touch. And then it gets called back for some, I don't know, kind of a phantom call. It's like, really? You really want to give Andy that 100th win, huh? Well, by the way, hey, tip of the cap. Congratulations to Andy Reid. First coach in the history of the NFL. The NFL's been around for over 100 years to win 100 games with two franchises. Of course, it started here in Philly. Over 100 wins with the Eagles, and now 100 wins with the Chiefs. And yeah, I mean, fittingly so, fittingly so in Philadelphia, he got his 100th win as a Chief head coach. Great. Listen, I know it didn't end well here with Andy. It got stale. Things just, fell apart. He's a great coach. He's been a great coach for many years. The Eagles, under his time here, had their longest stretch of success that I've seen. It didn't end in a Super Bowl championship as it did in, 2017 with Doug Peterson. But, I mean, you talk about that stretch of success when they were going to the NFC title game year after year after year. Yeah, it ended sourly. 3 of the first of those 4 years in a row. Then they finally got over the top against Atlanta, and then they, of course, lose in Super Bowl 39. But, I mean, you talk about just a stretch of success that I haven't seen, that none of us have seen, since really before, besides for little pockets of success there. He was a tremendous coach, and he the one thing Andy always was able to do, and as maddening as it was, as some of his issues were with the clock and the time management and the time's yours and the this and that the other thing, Andy always knew how to draft offensive weapons. Boy, he could draft offensive weapons, couldn't he? And one of those offensive weapons that was drafted by Andy got honored last week. It's Shady McCoy, who retired as a Philadelphia Eagle prior to that weekend's game. And it was nice to see Shady in there, getting a little, acknowledgement. He was a guy, one of those many weapons that was drafted by Andy Reid under his time with the Philadelphia Eagles, and you see him doing it with the Kansas City Chiefs now. No surprise. The man knows offense. He's known offense for a number of years. The offenses that run under Andy Reid are usually been explosive type offenses. We saw that here, right? We saw that here for years. Even though we griped about the wide receivers for some of those years, right? We all remember the TO year, the year, obviously the losing in Super Bowl 39, but what a fun run that was, how creative that offense was, how explosive that offense was. And then we remember it years later when we had Shady, we had Deshaun Jackson, we had Macklin, we had weapons, and they were drafted by Andy Reid prior to him leaving and Chip Kelly coming in, and we all know how it kind of went after that. But Andy always had that eye for offense. He always had that eye to draft offensive playmakers in the draft. And yeah, I kind of miss those years. And I still have high hopes for Devontae Smith, who had a very nice game last week, over 100 yards receiving for the first time in his career against Andy and the Chiefs. But yeah, I do miss that. We haven't had enough of that. And to that point, we have an offensive explosive type player that still doesn't see the ball enough in Miles Sanders. It's maddening. And I know last week at the game we're all chanting, run the ball, run the ball. Right? It is. That being said, listen, their offense looked really good last week. And the problem though, again, the problem it's been the last few weeks again, starting against the 49ers, is finishing those drives with touchdowns. And I know this is listen, young play callers, young coaches, young quarterback, young, weapons. I get that, but at the same time, find a way. And I'd love to see that today. I know Carolina has a good defense, but I'd love to see that today. I'd love to see the Eagles finishing drives with six, finishing drives with touchdowns, right? It betters your chance to win games if you finish your drives in the end zone in touchdowns that actually count, that there's no flags being thrown. And I thought E-Rock put out a very nice picture, very creative new Philadelphia Eagles helmet logo was the Eagles helmet instead of the wings that had a flag. had the yellow flag on the side like an eagle wing. Very creative by the mighty E-Rock, and shout out to him for that. Put that on Twitter earlier in the week. That got a good chuckle out of that. It's been very true. This team on both sides of the ball, the flags, the undiscipline, it's been a problem. But I saw positives a week ago out of this offense being able to move the ball. I know Kansas City's defense isn't the greatest, right? And that's going to be to their detriment, I believe, going forward, as far as trying to get back to a Super Bowl. But at the same time, yeah, too many flags. Again, another week, the Eagles being penalized. Hey, right or wrong, some of those flags shouldn't have been thrown, but right or wrong, you're still being penalized, right? The other problem, this is now twice that a touchdown has been taken off the board because an Eagle receiver was out of bounds. Not realizing. Now, you can make the argument this week. He was forced out of bounds. He got back in. You can make the argument more so than obviously Rieger weeks ago against the Niners, right? Maybe there's something about the home sideline. I don't know. Something, because both times it happened at home. Like, guys, know where the boundary is. But it did take a touchdown away from Devontae Smith. And again, you can split hairs. There was an argument to be made whether it still was legal. It is what it is, but still, it got taken back because he's out of bounds. I mean, again, in a season where I'm not looking at it wins and losses wise, I want to see progression. I saw progression a week ago with the offense, even though the drives failed to get in the end zone at times, which is troubling. Listen, and that's something that needs to be corrected, and I believe it's a correctable thing. But it's the little things. It's the little attentions to detail that you want to see this team get better at as one of the ways of progression as the season goes on. Now, again, this week against Carolina, it's a winnable game. And I know Carolina, look, they're 3-1. They're coming off their first loss last week against Dallas. It's a team that has played pretty good. I know they have, obviously Darnold now at quarterback. Their offense has been making some plays. I know without McCaffrey, it's not the same. And he is kind of the engine of that offense, right? He's the heartbeat of that offense. And without him out there, it's a much different looking offense. But at the same time, they do have a very strong defense. And hey, Temple Tough, right? Matt Rule. And a lot of Temple Tough players on that team. Hassan Reddick is there. Robbie Anderson. Just name a few. I think they had like 7 players that went to Temple University. TU, right? Well represented. In fact, the next 2 weeks, the Eagles will be going up against former Temple coaches. Matt Rule and Bruce Arians, right? So Temple Tough back-to-back weeks. And yeah, they are a very good defense. I know they made some moves. They've been aggressive at making some moves. I believe they brought in, was that C.J. Henderson, I believe, from Jacksonville. They also brought in Gilmore, who was released by the Patriots. So yeah, their defense is real. It's legit. They make plays. They get pressure on the opposing quarterbacks. Their defensive line is very disruptive. It's the type of defensive line that, listen, we remember having, from years ago. They're really playing well, and they have playmakers on that side of the ball. And yeah, it is worrisome, when you have a young offense and a young offensive play calling coaching staff coming into this game against a good defense and a very good defensive minded head coach in Matt Rule. It is. Listen, it's not going to be an easy game by any stretch. I believe it will be a low scoring game. But at the end of the day, I can see the Eagles pulling this one out. And I'm actually picking them to win this game in a close game. Maybe like one of those, I don't know, like a 24-21 type of game, 27-24 type of score I'm seeing in my mind. I think the Eagles come on top of this one. I think the defense has been challenged. I think they do have some prideful players on that side of the ball, some veterans who have been kind of taken to task this week, and rightfully so. But I think they rise to the occasion. I don't know. I'm calling a win for the Eagles. I know I got a buddy who's a big Panther fan who's from Carolina, so but I am calling for an Eagles win today. A close game, a hard fought game, that the Eagles come out on top. Maybe a late, Elliott field goal or something like that puts them on top, and they end up winning the game. So we'll see. Hey, I could easily see it go the other way. Again, it's not for me about the wins and losses this season as far as much as it is the progression, as I've said many a time. Stop me if you heard that one before, right? It's about the progression. I want to see what this team's got, going forward. I want to see what certain players got. And I do think that there is a light at the end of the tunnel, because after this season, the Eagles will have more money in cap space to be able to make some more moves, and they will have some potentially a very high draft capital in the first round. They have their own pick, which could be a high pick this season, and they will also have the Dolphins pick, which they will have irregardless. So if the Dolphins finish the season as one of the top 5 drafts in the first picks in the first round, it goes to the Eagles. They do also potentially have the Colts first round pick, but that still has to be seen. There's a lot of kind of red tape and different things with that, but we'll see. How that goes. But at any rate, that there is a light at the end of the tunnel. I know it's been tough. The past 2 weeks have been very. Again, last week, I guess more so against Dallas than last week, even though, I was there again. Shout out to my buddy Big Slim. We were there, and, I didn't really expect to win. It was an entertaining game. It was, it was kind of like a Madden game. There was no punts. So it was just one of those type of things. But I do want to see better when the Eagles get in the red zone. I want to see these drives end in touchdowns more so than not. And that, again, that's been one of the bugaboos over the last, since week 1. Week 2, 3, and 4, it's been not finishing drives with touchdowns and having some issues there. And you want to see them, you want to see that get better, particularly when you have a defense that really has had some issues. You got to kind of then, if you have to set the tone on offense, that's what you got to do. And you have to end these drives in touchdowns. And, if you got to go punch for punch with your opponent, I mean, that's what you got to do. And unfortunately, last week, the Eagles just couldn't do that with Kansas City, although it was a much better look on offense than it was a week ago against Dallas. Defense, it was about the same, which, yeah, it was tough, man. It's tough. And this is a town that loves defense. And, what we're seeing this year is, it is. It's tough to watch because you want it to be better. And linebackers, guys. Linebackers and safeties. Put more value into those positions. Anyhow, that's enough for the half-hour rant. Let's get into the Festive 4, right? The weekly 4-pack of winners that Festive feels are going to win week to week. So if you want to put some shekels on this, if you're one of those that does that, I've always said I gamble on eBay. That's where I gamble. I don't gamble with sports because I don't think there would be a problem. I don't think I would do very well at gambling with even if you're just putting like a buck here or there, I don't know, man. Then the competitive juices get going too much, and you're like, I want to try to win that money back. Let me put $20 down this. Oh, they lost. All right, let me put $30 down. I don't know. Yeah. Hey, for those who do it and do really well at it, tip the hat. You obviously know what you're doing. Right now there's a DraftKings commercial on TV. So, yeah, it's everywhere, we know. But I as far as me getting involved in these things, no, I don't think so. But Festive will give you a 4-pack of winners every week, nonetheless. So if you are one of those that puts some shekels on things, you might want to pay attention, because so far this season, even with the one bye week, Festive is 8-4 on the season. Went 3-1 a week ago. Looking to maybe go 4-0 this week. We'll see. Festive has been crunching the numbers. You don't know. What you don't see, week to week is, Festive putting in the work. Because Festive puts in the work. The number crunching that Festive does week to week. Don't let that face fool you. Don't let that look fool you. Festive really gets involved week to week to pump out the 4-pack of winners. Okay? So, first and foremost, this week, Festive likes Miami to continue to help the Eagles with the draft capital, right? Festive likes Tampa Bay, even though they are coming off a very emotional win last week at Foxborough against the Patriots. Tom Brady, of course, against his former team. So how many of you heard that? I think we heard that one about a gabillion times last week. Brady's returning home. No, you think? But Festive is still taking Tampa Bay over Miami this week. Festive also likes Pistols Las Vegas Raiders to bounce back with a win this week after Festive picked them to get their first loss last week. Festive likes them this week to bounce back to get a win over the Bears. Sorry to Big John, but Festive is picking against your Bears. Festive also likes Arizona to stay undefeated. Arizona is the last undefeated team left. But the 72 Dolphins are going to have to wait at least another week to pop those champagne bottles, because Festive likes Arizona. Sorry to the faithful, but Festive likes Arizona over San Francisco this week. And finally, Festive likes Pittsburgh. Even though talk about offenses that have been struggling, right? Pittsburgh has certainly been struggling, but Festive likes them to get a win against the Denver Broncos. So, again, in a wrap-up here, Festive likes Tampa Bay over Miami, Las Vegas over Chicago, Arizona to remain undefeated against San Francisco, and finally, Pittsburgh over Denver. That's the Festive Four for Week 5 of the NFL season. And we're going to hope that Week 5 is a better week for us Eagle fans than Weeks 2 through 4 have been. Certainly Weeks 3 and 4. Week 3 was the worst. But Week 4, okay, they showed some signs of improvement on offense. Defense, it stayed the same. But we're hoping for better things today. Listen, Carolina is a good team. They're well coached. They have some good players on both sides of the ball, particularly on the defensive side of the ball with McCaffrey out on offense. But it's a winnable game. In my opinion, this is a winnable game. And the Eagles got to just show up. They got to do their thing, try to get a win. Let's have a positive week. It's been just nothing but these clouds. Ever since right? The clouds haven't left Philly. It's just been dark and gloomy, and it's been rough. So let's get a win. Let's get a win this week against Carolina. And then, hey, you know what? Short week against the Bucs. We'll deal with them on Thursday night. We'll deal with that game later. Let's get a win today. Let's go Birds as always. And thank you all for watching. And you know what you have to do. You have to hit the like button. Many likes. Like, right? Leave the likes, right? Subscribe if you haven't already done so. After you subscribe, hit the bell icon so you get alerted to all content from this channel, whether it's Season of the Fan or otherwise, right? You can also catch me with my good fellas on Views with my good friends, my good fellas there. The good fella. Yeah, all right. Well, they're not like the mobsters, okay? But they the my good buddies from Views from the Vault. Make sure you tune in to that YouTube channel as well. Views from the Vault. Always great content with hats, with sports. I'm on with those guys from time to time. We're talking, a weekly segment about sports. We're also doing live look-ins with various games. Last week we did the first one with when it was the Yankees and Red Sox wild card game, right? And Pierre was all in his glory, being the diehard Red Sox fan. And shout out to Kyle. Kyle was a good sport. The diehard Yankee fan having to put up with that. But it was a lot of fun, and we're looking to do more of that week to week, and we're looking to improve on that. So it should be a lot of fun going forward. And yeah, join us in there week to week in our weekly watch. We're going to pick a game to watch every week, just about, and we're going to have you can join in with us and watch the reactions to these moments, because sometimes that's just it's just a natural thing. When it's live, you just never know what to expect. So it's a lot of fun. So join me on that channel as well, Views from the Vault, here on YouTube, and as well here in my channel where you can always find me, right? So please do so. All right, everyone, take care. Let's go Birds as always, and I will see you at some point after the game during the week as we wrap up week 5 and look ahead to week 6. Real quick turnaround, right? Quick turnaround Thursday night against the GOAT, Tampa Bay, Tom Brady and company. And yeah, we're going to see how things go. Hopefully today's a win, because that one might be I'm not saying they can't win, but that could get a little troubling. But anyhow, I will see you all later. Go Birds. Bye.